In the last 18 months, I've stumbled into reasonable success making videos all about a card game that I love. This video is going to explore what I've learned about Magic, the art of creating, and ultimately about myself in this time. My goal in sharing this with you is that you may learn vicariously through me. Whether you want to be better at Magic, you have aspirations to create more, or you simply want to be a little bit wiser. I hope it helps. I'm also making this as a way to help me clarify my own thoughts about what I'm going to do in the coming year and ultimately what I want out of it. Because much like a good Magic deck, starting with the end in mind is critical in getting us where we want to go. And you're welcome to see that as lesson number 1. So in the spirit of clarity, let's start with the big meaty stuff. Why I started making things to begin with, and specifically why Magic things. I have played this silly card game for most of my life. Some of my fondest teenage memories are being over at a friend's house in my incredibly small town in a little corner of Africa. My friend's dad had started playing this card game called Magic. We had no LGS and no type of store that would even be remotely close to stocking these types of cards. The only way we'd be able to get our cardboard fix was from said dad who worked in the city an hour away and would come back home on the weekends like a Khajiit with wares. Our own little version of Friday Night Magic ensued, with an assembled crew not unlike the kids huddled around a table playing D&D and Stranger Things. Kitchen table Magic rapidly became standard decks, and this little oasis gave us nerdy kids a place that felt safe. We'd found our people in a small town governed by lots of small thinking and a high school hierarchy dependent on how well you could run into other people and kick an egg-shaped ball. And well, I say safe, but as safe as you could be from a wild mongrel, a flame-tongue Kawu, or in my case, a Psychotog, which were some of the key cards from the meta decks at the time. This wonderful time continued for a few years, but then I moved away in search of the big city and trying desperately not to die within 5 miles of where I grew up. Over the many years that have followed, I've played Magic in bursts when I've found others who share the passion. Into 2024, I decided on what felt like a whim to start sharing my thoughts about the game around the middle of the year. Commander had brought me back to Magic a few years earlier after a sizable break, and I'd started consuming some Magic content for the first time in a very long time, and consuming Commander-specific content for the first time ever. It was ultimately a salubrious snail video that catapulted me over the precipice of the creative tipping point. I thought, fuck man, I can do better than this mollusk, and so I leaped. Jest aside, Snail's videos were the first ones that I'd seen to be thoughtfully exploring topics around the game of Magic that weren't purely mechanical. And I love what he was doing, as evidenced by the Easter egg of the snail in the background of most of my videos. I thought that I had similar, yet distinctly different ideas that were worth sharing. And while I absolutely love limited and constructed formats, the social element of the Commander environment that I was now enjoying created a platform to talk about things that I find really interesting, like psychology, philosophy, and social dynamics. I had a comment the other day from someone that said one of my videos was in their top 5 favorite pieces of Magic content for the year, and that the rest of the top 5 was dominated by the snail himself, which made me very happy. Don't get me wrong, I clearly still have work to do to topple the mighty invertebrate, but missions somewhat accomplished, and dopamine collected. Now this is probably something that I'd wanted to do 10 or even 20 years ago, and whilst I felt like it was on a whim now, it was a deep-rooted desire to create that was bubbling over, like a dormant volcano coming back to life. Had it not been yapping about Magic, the creative urge would almost certainly have manifested in some other way. Be happy it's musings about this game and not badly sung cover songs. As someone who's always felt the urge to be creative, I've come in and out of creative pursuits almost my entire life. Writing, photography, music, Magic decks, I always seem to find a way back to creating in some form when I'm bombarded with a clear mind and some time on my hands. Like when a chapter of my life ends, be that work or relationship or something else. And there's a lesson for me here about my relationship with creating, and how I shouldn't diminish or lessen my focus on it when the rent is due. And perhaps there's truth in that for you. So that's why I started. The perfect trifecta of a lifelong love of a game, a deep-rooted need to create, and coming into a space where I had the time to do so. But what about where I want to go? Well, I think I would like to be one of the biggest figures in the world of casual Magic the Gathering. On par with some people I admire, like Brian Kibler, The Prof, Gavin, Josh, Rachel, Spice8Rack, and of course Ristic Studies. Now that is a lofty goal to be sure, but I believe that I have my own valuable life experience and brand of value to add that justifies my place in that lineup, or I would probably never have started. I'd have been paralyzed in place at the fear of being seen as a fraud, because anxiety is one hell of a drug. Now this doesn't necessarily mean that I think I'm already there or that I deserve it, but it's where I would like to end up, with all the trials, tribulations, and personal growth that would happen along the way. I think it's important to have clarity when it comes to what one wants, and to not be afraid of setting a goal that probably seems out of reach as long as one understands the work required to get there. I really do believe that I am one of their peers, and it's just about putting in the work to make sure everyone else realizes that too. It's very easy to shut ourselves down, or talk ourselves down, from doing something before we even share that idea with others. And they're probably even more likely to shut us down. Which brings me to a good point about creating literally anything. When I started doing this, I didn't really tell anyone. I just started making the videos. Now fortunately, I have some friends that are also creative and therefore ended up as a mini support group who I'd pester for endless thumbnail feedback. But be aware that when most of us want to do something new or start something new, be it a new magic format, a new hairstyle, a YouTube channel, or a new career, those close to us, our partners, our friends, our families, are often our biggest detractors, and we're more likely to get encouragement from absolute strangers. I'm not going to deep dive into why this happens, but be aware of this in any big changes you try to make in your life. If it's something that you believe in, just do it, because the same people who will shut you down will congratulate you when it goes well. So just focus on doing the thing. There's also the reality that we may never reach our destination. As someone that creates or has ambitions to create anything, I think it's incredibly important to enjoy the act of creating itself. Have the craft be the focus and find the joy in that. Forget the outcome and revel in the trial and error, the learning, and the honing of the craft. In what I do, that means not pining after views, likes, validation, or adoration. Instead, it means finding the joy in writing a 5,000 word script like this one, joy in agonizing over a title and a thumbnail, and joy in trying to come up with a new deck or a new way to see something in the game of Magic that has already existed for 30 years. If one only creates for the outcome and we attach all of our joy to it, we're setting ourselves up for a lot of unhappiness if and likely when we fail. Not to mention a void of happiness and an endless game of dopamine-fueled cat and mouse along the way. In this, like anything in life, the journey is much more important than the destination. This is equally as true when it comes to a game of Magic. Our ability to distance ourselves from caring about the outcome of the game will directly impact our ability to enjoy said game. This is obviously true for a casual social format like Commander, but I would also argue it's even more true and far more important if one's trying to be competitive. Mental clarity and a flow state has never been achieved by someone who is stressing out about winning or annoyed that they didn't win a game. If, however, I manage to reach the creative flow state and summit this mountain, a part of this world-famous amphibian high life would be attending major events like MagicCons and participating in wide-reaching Magic content. The more that I do of that kind of thing now, the more the enjoyment outweighs the anxiety, and I really enjoy helping others learn about Magic and think differently about the game. Not to mention using Magic as a proxy to talk about some of those other related psychological areas. So keep an eye out for a How Your Biases Are Costing You Wins panel coming to a MagicCon near you. I'd also love to work more closely with Magic to shape the game that I love in any and all forms, because I believe my thinking could be of benefit. Now, whilst those are the harder and flashier goals, they're probably the less important ones. The soft goals are far more important to me. Firstly, I want to flex my creative muscles, and to push myself outside of my comfort zone. Partially, or greatly, fueled by anxiety, I think I've shied away, for a lack of a better word, from the stage or performance. I don't think I'll ever become a comedic skit guy, nor a regular stage performer, but I think that I add a reasonable amount of value on camera and or in content, and can be highly entertaining. There is a part of me that feels like I was always meant to do that, but that my brain has stopped or sabotaged me, so I'd really love to explore that. Whether it's in entertainment-focused content, like live play shows, or even on live broadcasts as talent if it's an area I know well, which right now I would say is Pauper, Commander, and to a degree limited. The second softer goal is to find my people. I'll dive a bit deeper into this in a bit, but I imagine that like most of us, I am always seeking to expand the group of people in my life that I vibe with. Sadly, for a variety of reasons, this group that gives me energy has always been incredibly small, because the bar is high in a number of specific areas. Things like humor, intelligence, curiosity, positivity, humility, empathy, self-awareness, open-mindedness, and willingness to take on new information and change one's perspective. Oh, and nerding out about Magic also definitely helps. There is obviously nothing wrong with those that require energy for me to engage with. If anything, the wrong lies with me, but it's just how it is. I figure the bigger profile I have, the more chance I get to meet other like-minded people that hopefully I don't drain their energy. I think there is a lesson in this for us Magic players, which is that Magic, like most things, is infinitely better if we find our people. And it is 1000% worth investing the time to find them at the beginning, rather than playing lots of Magic with people whose company we don't really enjoy. Life is incredibly short, and too short to tolerate people that we wouldn't otherwise want as friends simply because we want to play a game. I don't think there's any shame in being honest with ourselves and the others, and simply spending time with those who we enjoy. It's just a cosmic, sentient space dust puzzle, and we simply have to find our corresponding pieces. Don't get me wrong, as a part of this, you obviously have to get out there and play with plenty of strangers. But in the words of the great Roy Kent, you deserve someone that makes you feel like you've been struck by fucking lightning. Don't you dare settle for fine. Okay, so that's where I want to go. Let's talk about some of the mechanics of how I get there. But first, I think I need to challenge myself to think about why I want those things, lest I get to the destination and find out that I'm somewhere that I really don't want to be. This will probably get a little bit personal, but fuck it. Given the amount of time that I spent on Magic and making videos about it in the past year and a half, I think that's exactly what it is. I think there are many broader reasons why I want these outcomes. As a creative, I think I need an outlet, but I probably also just want to feel something. I think the modern world makes it infinitely easier to feel alone in a physical or increasingly a digital room full of people. Making things is almost certainly a bid for connection and community, and I want to feel like I am of use. A byproduct of this is probably wanting to be recognized as intelligent or insightful, but why I should probably dive into. I think most of my life I've felt a little bit out of place. Don't get me wrong, I can't complain too much. I have a roof over my head, I have some great friends, I have amazing pets, I have a lovely wife, and my Magic playgroup right now is pretty damn great. But outside of these small oases in a desert, throughout my life I felt like I didn't quite fit in anywhere. For a long time I've known that I probably have ADHD, proven by far too many things across the year. Like the ability to endlessly yap about an interest like Magic the Gathering, and an endless inability to focus on things that are important yet boring, like my high school exams or any form of paperwork. I have pretty much always been fairly sure that I was afflicted, but with much less knowledge of how it actually affects me. In recent years, I've explored neurodivergence much more and realized that I've probably been upgraded to being a triple threat. That's right, baby. ADHD, a light sprinkling of autism, probably masked by the ADHD, and anxiety. All keeping each other precariously in balance like a cat walking around a bathtub. Now I am anxious about ADHD. Thanks, comorbidity. Now I don't think that feeling out of place is exclusively reserved for those formally diagnosed or otherwise, but I do think this plays a big part in wanting to find my people because I think that these things make that much more difficult. I've come to appreciate that the concoctions of chemicals in my brain make it so that my natural assumption is that people are at best neutral towards me, or that I am a burden and that people actively dislike or do not want to spend time with me until I am presented with strong evidence otherwise. If you invite me to something, I'll assume it's out of politeness, and heavens help me if I need something from you as part of that, like getting me into a venue. My social anxiety goes absolutely through the roof. If we spend time together and you've greatly enjoyed my presence, I will assume it's the opposite unless it was absolutely clear and or you proactively make an effort to try to do so again. I don't say any of this in a woe is me sort of way. I'm merely acknowledging my brain's way of sabotaging me, especially when simply being perceived feels like an attack, and when a big part of my brain wants novelty, creativity, and to be doing the things that involve being perceived by many people. This is much easier to do in a video where you're simply having to contend with comments, most of which thankfully are lovely, but much harder to do when you're standing on a stage in front of 100 or even 1,000 people, and ironically, what I want requires just that. I share all of this partly because I know that many others are in a similar boat, and like me, don't take it seriously or downplay it, until the effects stack up to the point where it just can't be ignored. A bit like poison counters. I also share this because it affects the why of what I want quite a lot. And I realize more and more by the day how my entire life has been affected, and identify behaviors that have held me back from what I want. What I want here, be that objective measurable success, or finding like-minded lifelong friends, relies on putting myself out there, letting down a guard that is often up, and trying hard with the knowledge that I might fail. It lies beyond comfort zone, beyond anxiety, and also beyond fear. I think a part of this is that I want to realize the dreams of a kid who was often too scared to leap, and who felt rejection far more often and far harder than most. A kid that didn't have the opportunities that I now have. There's almost certainly a desire for external validation in this, and I would be crazy not to realize that, but the reality is that the summit of this journey is really much more of a personal thing. Or maybe this is just my current hyperfixation until the dopamine runs out. You could probably take a lot of different things from this ramble about neurodivergence, but if anything, remember that our time is finite, and not let fear steal your life away from you. In any case, I want these things for reasons that aren't blindly superficial, or driven by external factors, and that to me is the important bit, as I think it's really easy to chase goals for the wrong reasons, and often those are led by external validation. So we have the what, and we have the why, but what about the how? First, I think I need to look backward at what has worked this year and what hasn't, as it'll inform what I do going forward. This will give you a look under the hood, so to speak, at the nuts and bolts of being, in inverted commas, a creator. It's going to be a bit more information dense, but there are important lessons nestled between the piles of nuts and bolts. My long form videos, which are my bread and butter, have been mostly good. Don't get me wrong, I still think there's lots of room for improvement, but people have been served my thumbnails almost 25 million times and have clicked to watch about 2.1 million times. That is a hell of a lot of people and kind of crazy to think about. Cumulatively, people have spent 25 years of time watching my long form videos, which is wild. Each person watching a video sticks around for about 6 minutes on average, which is pretty good bearing in mind about 30% of people dip in the first 15 seconds and many then watch for 15 minutes. The thought that there is a large stadium full of people actively choosing to listen to me speak for Magic at least 6 minutes every month is, as I've said, pretty crazy. Now I'd like to think that the actual content of my videos is better than the titles and thumbnails represent, so that's something that I need to work on. I want to leave this exercise with very focused and specific things and clarity so that I don't get pulled in random different directions, which is very, very easy for me. And I think that better titles and thumbnails and critically better ideas is going to be a big focus. As someone who creates things that gets put online into the court of public opinion, it's very easy to fall into the trap of chasing numbers. And despite best intentions, the allure of number go up, brain feel good got the best of me on many occasions. It also definitely affected what I chose to make at times during the year as well. Sometimes the numbers help us by showing us that a certain topic or idea clearly wasn't as interesting as we thought it was. Other times we end up making things we think will do the numbers, but it doesn't get remotely as much attention as we thought it will. Then we feel like we betrayed ourselves in chasing this high. Sometimes we don't make something that we want to make, or worse yet, make it and don't show anyone because we're worried that it won't live up to our expectations when it comes to viewership. Managing our expectations is a hell of a job, and for me it can be challenging and sometimes disappointing given I started this not to get views, but to be creative and share knowledge. I think it's also easy as someone who creates to worry about all sorts of irrelevant things that affect whether or not people engage with what we make. When we create, where we put it, how long or short our content is, what the meta is on the platforms we post on, like having to do short form or having to make videos about certain topics. And when it all goes wrong, whether or not we're shadow banned. Believe me, none of that matters. All that really matters is how interesting our ideas are, how good we are at storytelling, and how that translates into a title and a thumbnail that makes someone curious enough to click the video or hang around for more than 3 seconds in a short form video. I've heard it said that the algorithm on a platform is just individual humans making decisions at scale, and I think it helps to think about a single person sitting at their desk or on their phone and how they decide what they're going to watch. It's no different than how you or I decide what we're going to watch, like how you decided to click on this video. And I'm not sure if you're even aware of the key things that made you decide to click on this. This flow of communication is really no different to any other aspect of our life. How good our ideas are, how well we can sell them, and how they resonate with our audience are all building blocks for how to achieve anything. Whether you're convincing your partner what to have for dinner, or you're deciding how to spend a $10 million marketing budget. Remember this the next time you're trying to convince your playgroup to let you play your Poison Atraxa deck. Given the importance of ideas going into 2026, from an ideas perspective, it seems like lists of tips, advice, and learnings have been the thing that resonate the most, as these are the biggest videos on my channel. Well, that and my Final Fantasy Commander tier list, despite everyone saying that they're sick of Universes Beyond. I think I need to find a balance between more technical content, like deck techs and deck reviews, and more intellectual content, like introducing new and interesting ideas. Because I feel like my takes and perspectives and thinking is one of the things that really sets my channel apart. Don't get me wrong, I think I am a very good deck builder, and when I'm at my best, I would dare to say I'm probably one of the best out there when it comes to non-competitive Magic deck building. But deck reviews and deck content has taken up a lot of time in the past few months and has definitely limited my ability to get out videos, or to do the thinking required to come up with interesting ideas. Because the deck tech probably takes as long as a creative, thoughtful video. Building cool and structurally good Magic decks is a part of why I started making things to begin with, so I definitely don't want to cut deck-related videos from what I make entirely, as I feel like it's one of the core pieces of value that I offer, but it's certainly not resonating with the widest audience. Speaking of wider audiences, with the ambition to be a Magic household name, I do think that I need to expand my ideas beyond the Commander containment zone. That doesn't mean that I'm going to stop talking about Commander, and it definitely does not mean that I'm going to start making talking head commentary videos twice a month about how much I hate Universes Beyond or how Wizards is ruining Magic. But I do think that what I make needs to evolve a little bit in ways that I probably won't figure out by the time that I hit publish on this video. I think that videos on YouTube, and really any broadcast content, falls into two major buckets. People either watch to learn something, or they watch to be entertained. I would guess that 95% of what I make right now leans into the learning side, and that's the primary value that you as a viewer receives. I think that will remain the core, but I think that leaves me to explore entertainment as a marketing channel to attract newer viewers. Whether that's something that exists on my channel or is something appearing elsewhere remains to be seen. As a tangent, I often think about the distinction of content versus art in the realm of what I make, but that's a whole separate video. I would be curious to you as a viewer. What do you think as someone who watches what I make? Are you here to learn or to be entertained? Do you prefer more general tips, takes, and perspectives, or videos about specific decks and deck reviews? Are you here for musings on Commander or general takes on Magic as a game? Those questions aside, this is probably enough about long form as a format, but I do think that taking the top 20% of my videos and making more in that style, effectively focusing what I do, is going to be a key takeaway here. I've talked about focus a lot in what I do, but recent adventures in Pauper have flogged the dead horse when it comes to this topic. 60 card formats are razor sharp compared to almost any Commander deck that comes across my deck. And the only time when these 60 card decks can go wrong, like my recent experience tinkering with various types of affinity in Pauper, is when we dilute our game plan too much. If a Magic deck were a sword, focus would make it sharper, and I would imagine that we all want a sharp sword. Okay, let's speedrun some other areas. Short form content has been much more hit and miss for me, partially because it just hasn't been a focus. It's not terrible, but it's by no means good. I don't think that what I make really fits well for short form video. At least not without significant change, and change equals time that I have to spend when I'm already spending enough or probably too much time. If anything, I think short form for me will become a place where I put snippets of longer videos like I already have done, because creating specific short form content doesn't create the results worth the time, at least not if I compare that with an equal amount of time spent on long form videos or new ideas. Even if I end up just sharing snippets, those still need to be packaged slightly differently and edited, and I think I need to automate the editing of that. Editing is a massive chore, and something that'll be a theme here and in other areas is overcommitting myself and biting off more than I can chew. I looked into editors as a way of helping me with that earlier this year, and I really struggled because I found that the way I make my graphics is very time intensive, and paying someone else to do that would cost me hundreds and hundreds of dollars per video because it would take them so long, or they wouldn't get the results that I want. So sadly, that didn't work out. But if you're an editor and you see what I do and you think you could do it without taking tons of time and or costing me tons of money, I would love to talk to you. Send me an email, it's on screen now. So I launched the Patreon this year, and it fucking sucks. My Patreon makes me very sad right now. And literally while writing the script, 2 people have subscribed. Shout out to both of you, along with the others that support me. I appreciate it a ton. But it makes me really sad that seeing my response to someone subscribing and supporting me is, oh no, rather than oh yes. When I made it, I really wanted to make it a central place to more closely engage with the core section of people that vibe what I do. Uptake was slow, and it needed a lot of work. And because the uptake was slow, it would take a lot of work to provide value to a very small amount of people. The ROI for me was really, really low in doing that, and anyone that has ADHD knows what happens when the work vastly outweighs the dopamine reward. To make matters worse, what I wanted to do was use this as a way to make cool stuff. Do giveaways, make cool limited stickers, tokens, maybe deck boxes. But most of my audience is in the US and in Europe, and the postage on these items basically costs as much as a subscription after fees and tax. And that's before we even talk about the time it takes to make the stuff. All in all, I believe they call this a clusterfuck. I felt and feel horrible about this, so I'm going to be completely revamping it in a way that serves me and most importantly, serves anyone who supports me with far more values in ways that are easier for me to achieve. I think it's really important to be aware that in doing anything, mistakes and failures are a part of the process, and success exists on the other side of these things. Whilst I will definitely call my Patreon launch this year a massive failure, that doesn't mean that I can't work on fixing it and make it better, because I still think that it has value, and I want to make it work. Coffee, on the other hand, has had slightly more success. I've done a bunch of deck reviews on there across the year, and the feedback from those has been really great, despite the relatively high price tag. The reality, even at what they cost, which I am well aware of is not low, is that they're probably far too cheap based on the time that I spend on them, and I need to be careful that I don't do more than 1 or 2 maximum per month. Right now, they serve their value to me and to the people who pay for them. But I think that in the future, I'm going to need to cut back on these and treat them and charge for them like a luxury item, because they take me 2 or more full days of work to do. No one buys them in the future, that's probably the best, to be honest, and there's probably a lesson for me in that about whether it's helping or hindering my overall goals. Lastly, looking back, I also launched my Discord, which for the most part has been pretty good. It's grown to a reasonable size, the vibes are good, and it's filled with some really good people. Though honestly I'm not in there enough, and that creates a whole separate bout of guilt and anxiety. Similar to Patreon, the Discord needs a little bit of work, as what I want is to take it from simply a room full of people to a managed community, and I think that I've realized I need help to do that. Whether it's random bots spam pinging the entire server or simply organizing things like regular play nights, the community isn't communitying enough right now. But it hasn't happened because I just don't have the bandwidth, and I need to be willing to ask for help or it simply won't happen. It's always really tricky with something like this because this is a space that ultimately represents me, and people often volunteer to help, but I'm not sure that they represent exactly what I would want, and I have to be very careful about picking the people that I do give power to help create the vibe that exists within this community. So that's a challenge. As I look forward, I've already mentioned spending far more time on ideation, titles, and thumbnails, and actively using what I know works as inspiration for future videos. Outside of this, I think a big focus for me this year will be to take up more space in the Magic world. I want to collaborate with other Magic creators, get to more events, and participate in the greater Magic world in more meaningful ways. Viewing what I make as a product, I think the core value it delivers is good, and while everything can always be better, I think a new viewer exposed to me now and what I make has a fairly strong archive of good, valuable work to engage with. I need to be very careful here not to bite off more than I can chew, but this is effectively marketing for my channel, with the goal of bringing in new viewers to be aware of what I offer. So I need to find new ways to make this happen that don't involve spending tons of money on international trips, because Australia is really far from everything. Picking the opportunities I accept and the doors I knock on will be very important. But as a viewer of what I make, feel free to do some guerrilla marketing for me by suggesting my presence in other Magic content where you think I would be a good addition. Ultimately, the less time I spend out there marketing, the more time I'll spend coming up with better ideas and videos for you. I think this is already a lot, but I think the last thing I need here is more structure. And structure is super tricky, because it's a gift and a curse for me. The thought of structure almost entirely kills my desire to do anything, and I want to escape like a cat that's being carried towards a bath, but I also know that I need it. I need systems to help manage things like the Patreon, the Discord, and the different opportunities that I give my time to. And last but definitely not least, I need to plan videos out so that they're delivered on a regular cadence. The structure part is so tough for me because I think partly with Neurodivergence, I operate in bursts, and there is an ebb and flow of how the ideas come to me and my ability to execute them that really struggles with rigid structure. There are times this year when I felt like I will never have another good idea ever again. And then there are times when I have 5 ideas on my mind at the same time and struggle to finish a single one. The idea that I think will probably work is building up a buffer of a month or two's work that is already done, which allows me to stick to a schedule that isn't going to fall down like a castle built on sand when I hit the idea doldrums, or if life just gets too busy. My goal here is a cadence of a video every 2 weeks, and this year I think is going to be pretty busy for me outside of making videos, so wish me luck. And that is where I think I'm going to stop, because otherwise we're going to be here for over an hour. Feel free to ask me questions in the comments and continue the conversation, whether it's about magic, or you create in some fashion, or just about life. I would love to yap. Last, but definitely not least, I want to take this as an opportunity to say thank you to you and to everyone who watches and engages with what I make. I greatly appreciate that you choose to spend some of your time with me, and I hope I continue to meet your expectations when you click on one of my silly frog JPEGs. And to those of you that take this a step further and subscribe, yap in the Discord, and especially those who choose to part with their hard-earned money in this economy, I can't say thank you enough. If you're not one of these people and you're new here are 2 videos you might want to check out that are fairly similar in tone to this one. And as always, thank you for being here.